2311 Racing have just backed down from their big NASCAR lawsuit, as according to FOX Sports Bob Pockrass, 2311 Racing and Front Row Motorsports have dropped their appeal of a preliminary injunction finding in their antitrust action against NASCAR. The source also outlined what this all means going ahead. 2311 and FRM sought a preliminary injunction to operate as chartered teams in 2025 while pursuing their case, but it was refused. They subsequently filed an appeal in federal court, accusing NASCAR of obstruction. In the court petition, 2311 and FRM stated why they are discontinuing their appeal to the verdict. They identified changing circumstances as a cause. Circumstances have changed in the underlying case, removing the need for this appeal and necessitating appellants to seek new relief from the district court, the motion said, according to Pockrass. Pockrass speculated that it may lead to a number of outcomes. One option is to refile for a preliminary injunction in district court. If circumstances changed, that would make irreparable harm more likely and not as speculative. The judge kept the choice open. He also mentioned that settlement negotiations may be an alternative option. However, Pockrass stated that it would be more unexpected. The decision to terminate the appeal by 2311 and FRM comes only 2 days before the appeal brief's suggested deadline of November 22nd. However, NASCAR preferred that the deadline be set for November 25th. 2311 and Front Row wanted the deadline to be December 4th, but NASCAR demanded a deadline of December 23rd. The planned deadlines for 2311 and Front Row's responses were December 6th for both teams and December 30th for NASCAR. The teams wanted the oral argument deadline to be December 13th, but NASCAR requested that it be January 26th or later. All of this happened after 2311 and Front Row declared they will be able to compete in 2025 as open teams when NASCAR lifted the anti-competitive release allegations that would have allowed them to race throughout the case. My clients will continue their appeal to the Fourth Circuit to issue an injunction so they can run as chartered teams, avoiding irreparable harm, Jeffrey Kessler, the two teams' attorney, told the Associated Press. Both race teams are pleased that they will continue to be a participant in this sport that they love while fighting to make it fair and just for all. It will be interesting to see how it all turns out. On thing is sure, it's making waves in the NASCAR scene, and Kevin Harvick feels that 2311 Racing and Front Row Motorsports' lawsuit against NASCAR was the most significant development in the sport this year. On Kevin Harvick's Happy Hour, he discussed why he picked the lawsuit as the biggest story of the 2024 season. When you look at the 2311 and Front Row Motorsports NASCAR lawsuit, I mean, it's happening today, and it's going to be a story as we go through the off-season into the winter, Harvick said. Doesn't look like there's a lot of momentum on the team side. It looks to me like they're going to keep battling down this road. They're going to wind up racing as open teams, which is going to create a story for a scenario where one of their cars could possibly miss the Daytona 500 or any race throughout the year if you have enough open cars. Taking this stance with Denny Hamlin and Michael Jordan and his team and the Front Row team, does that move the needle to make anything better for anything else? It's such a bold move that we have never seen it to this magnitude in the sport. I think that those two teams feel like that they're fighting for something that could change the path of what they believe the sport should look like as a team owner. Harvick added, "There's so many things and so many directions that this story could go. To me, it was definitely the biggest thing that happened." On October 2nd, 2311 and Front Row filed a complaint against NASCAR, claiming that the company's activities violated antitrust laws. The case centers on NASCAR's charter agreements, which 2311 and Front Row declined to sign, claiming unfair provisions. As Harvick indicated, 2311 and Front Row will participate as open teams next season because the case will go until 2025. It's actually pretty simple in my opinion, Hamlin, who co-owns 2311 Racing with Jordan, said at the time per Newsweek. When I look around, I see that the best and most competitive sports in the world understand that when teams thrive, fans benefit, and that everyone who invests in making the sport a success should share fairly in that success. With the right changes, we can certainly make that a reality in racing. Despite the continuing litigation and the possibility of not having charters next year, 2311 Racing is not giving up. 2311 Racing, co-owned by NBA icon Michael Jordan and three-time Daytona 500 winner Denny Hamlin, plans to add a third full-time car next year. Along with the number 23 of Bubba Wallace and the number 45 of Tyler Reddick, they will field the No. 35 Toyota Camry, driven by Riley Herbst. Herbst, 25, introduces Monster Energy as the primary sponsor, which currently supports 2311 Tyler Reddick in the Cup Series and Joe Gibbs racing driver Ty Gibbs. Herbst has competed in every NASCAR Xfinity race over the last 5 seasons, with 2024 being his finest season yet, winning 2 races and finishing 8th in the championship standings. He also finished the year with his 3rd career victory in the title decider, thanks to a last-lap overtake on freshly crowned Xfinity Series champion Justin Allgaier. Herbst has also made 8 Cup Series starts in the last 2 years, including a top 10 finish in his debut in the 2023 Daytona 500. He improved on his result later that year, finishing 9th at Talladega. The number 35 car's crew chief will be Davin Rivo, who previously worked with Herbst in the Xfinity Series. 2311 has previously ran 3 different cars, albeit in limited capacity. They fielded the number 67 and then the number 50 on a part-time basis, with prominent drivers including as Juan Pablo Montoya, Kamui Kobayashi, and Travis Pastrana. 2311 original goal was to acquire a charter from the now-defunct Stewart-Haas Racing, but owing to a legal battle with NASCAR over the 2025 charter agreement, all 3 may have to compete as open entrants, meaning they are not locked into any event. A judge recently refused their plea for a preliminary injunction to preserve their charters while the antitrust litigation is ongoing. Harvick also had some words about other teams, as at the start of the 2024 NASCAR Cup Series season, 2 teams stood out: Joe Gibbs Racing and Hendrick Motorsports. The 2 teams won 10 of the first 12 races, and it appeared that one of them would take the championship. That is why you race, and why a season consists of 36 races rather than 12. JGR had no drivers in the championship 4, whilst Hendrick only had 1, William Byron. Joey Logano of Team Penske has won his 2nd title in the previous 3 seasons. Kevin Harvick mentioned Hendrick's fall-off, pointing out how their pace dropped as the season progressed. Let's take the Hendrick cars, for example. Those guys fired off at the beginning of the year and spent the first half of the year taking turns dominating, winning races and running up front, Harvick said. When you look at the end of the year, William Byron not as fast compared to the competition. Kyle Larson's not as fast compared to the competition. Now Kyle Larson was in position to capitalize on some things, but the speed of the car was not what it was in the beginning half of the year. I think a lot of that is just the driver communicating with the team to say, we need this, we need this, we need this, we need this. I like this decision. I don't like this decision. It's not that Kyle Larson's crew chief doesn't believe in him, because Cliff Daniels and Kyle have a great relationship, but how can you keep moving the needle? And sometimes it's hard to be the leader. And I know they didn't let their guard down, but they just didn't push as hard as the other guys had to push because they weren't as far behind. They were ahead. Sometimes that's the hard part about being the leader in the clubhouse, is you don't have to push anymore. Speaking of Larson, he has reached victory lane 6 times this season, more than anyone else in the field. He won 2 of those races in the playoffs, but 2 results outside the top 10 in the round of 8 put him on the outside looking in Phoenix. Byron, the only Hendrick driver to progress, has won 3 of the first 8 races this season. He did not win another and had a difficult summer. Chase Elliott won at Texas in April and finished with an average of 11.7. Still, it wasn't enough to qualify him for the championship 4. And then there's Alex Bowman, who appeared to have made it to the round of 8 before failing post-race inspection at the Charlotte Roval. Yes, Hendrick had several highs this season. The ultimate aim, however, is to win championships. They lost out on the championship for the 3rd year in a row, but they expect to have 4 cars capable of winning it next season. What do you think? Will that be possible?